Beastmen are another faction that was once one of the worst in the game and is now one of the most overpowered you can find not just in Warhammer 3 but almost any Total War. With their combination of free armies, unstoppable momentum and massive effects from the Bloodlands, they can be nearly impossible to stop once they get going. Lucky for you, that translates them into being insanely strong to play as, with so many effects working with them that once they get on a roll, they are pretty much unstoppable. Sadly, it's not all sunshine, slaughter and rainbows. The free recruitment comes at the cost of unit capacity, meaning having a full endgame stack can take a lot of time and resources to get totally full. The horde-based building system also leaves them open to leaving a ton of progress, as if you lose a non-immortal army, you're going to lose all the buildings inside it, potentially meaning thousands of currency down the drain, as well as all the time. And of course, being so hellbent on destruction means no one wants to be friends with them, so diplomacy is pretty much non-existent. If you're looking for this as Total War, the Beastmen are a great pick to do it with. First, let's go over the different factions. First up, we have the War Herd of the One-Eye, and they are of course led by Kazrak the One-Eye. For their faction effects, they have minus 15% dread cost for all unit capacity upgrades, plus 15% evasion chance when using the beast paths for all characters, and plus 15% ambush success chance for all armies. For Kazrak's army, they have reduced bestial rage penalties and detection chance when using the hidden encampment stance, vanguard deployment for Bestigors and Razor God chariot units, and poison attack for all Ungor units. His starting location is just outside of Lorelorn Forest. For his starting army, he has a Bestigor herd, a Gore herd, 2 units of Ungor herd, 2 units of Ungor spearman herd, some Ungor raiders, some Razor God chariots, and some Minotaurs, as well as a Bray Shaman of Death hero. The climate preferences for every single Beastman faction is the same. Everywhere is suitable since they don't really take over settlements in the traditional sense. For the victory conditions, they must destroy Midland and occupy, loot, raise or sack 35 different settlements. The starting war versus the Wood Elves can be a little bit challenging since their garrisons can put up a decent fight in the early game. Take out the nearby army and build up yours as much as possible since all of your units are free. Once you have a full stack on the go, take their settlement and raise a herdstone since it's a prime location to get tons of marks very quickly. After this, head towards Midland, taking out each of their settlements in the herdstone range to pile on as many points as you can. Make sure nothing goes to take out your stone while doing this, otherwise all of your work will have been for nothing. Once Midland are gone, just keep attacking pretty much everyone nearby till you have the maximum points you can get, perform the ritual, then move on. From here you can go basically wherever you want, but the path of least resistance will likely be to head east and maybe set up your second stone in the Griffin Wood, since it has so many surrounding regions, and most of them will be held by minor factions or Azhag if he's made it this far. Just keep setting up stones and raising until you have all your settlements, and you're done. Next up we have the Harbinger of Disaster, and they are led by Malagor the Dark Omen. For their faction effects, they have minus 50% dread cost for all hero capacity upgrades, plus 10% campaign move range, and plus 5 recruit rank for Bray Shamans and Great Bray Shamans. For Malagor's army, they gain 50% movement range when using the beast paths, inflicts minus 100% casualty replenishment rate and 8 leadership on all local enemy armies, and Harpy units in the army cause fear. The faction starts just outside of Sunken Cairn March, and the starting army has 2 Ungor herd, 2 Spearman Ungor herd, 2 Ungor raiders, a Feral Manticore, a Giant, and 2 Harpies, as well as a Gorbel starting hero. For their victory conditions, they must have 220 marks of ruination, and occupy, loot, raise or sack 35 different settlements. Since you don't really have any specific faction or direction to work towards, all you need to do is get as many marks as possible. Start by taking the Sunken Cairn March and creating a herdstone and grinding as many points as you can from the surrounding settlements. Once you've milked the surrounding area as much as you can, go in any direction you want. Since you'll have declared war on Wurzag anyway, head north to continue that to avoid starting more and leaving yourself open to attack. Just keep grinding herdstones for all the marks you can, and before you know it, you'll have everything you need for the short victory. Next up we have the War Herd of the Shadowgave, and they're of course led by Morgur the Shadowgave. For his faction effects, he has plus 4 unit capacity for Chaos Spawn, plus 8% casualty replenishment rate for all armies, plus 3 Chaos Undivided Corruption for all characters, and minus 15% building cost for all armies. For Morgur's army, his raiding stance is upgraded to Despoiler raiding stance, which spreads attrition and corruption. He's immune to Athaloran attrition. Morgur can only ever be wounded for 1 turn. He provides plus 5 Chaos Undivided Corruption, and 20% spell resistance for all units. His faction starts just outside of Montanas, and his starting units are Ungor herd, 2 Ungor spearman herds, some Ungor raiders, some Razor God chariots, 2 Centaurs, and 2 Chaos Spawn, as well as a Gorbel hero. For their victory conditions, you must have 220 marks of ruination and destroy Estalia, Carcassonne, and Talcin, as well as occupy, loot, raise or sack 35 different settlements. You're going to start by creating a herdstone in Montanas, and then clear the surrounding area, farming as many marks as possible, only leaving Skaven Blight since it can be a little bit tough to take out. Once it is as full as it's going to get, perform the ritual, then head north into Bretonnia to take on Carcassonne, making a herdstone in Brionne to maximise your points whilst you take them out. After this, King's Glade or Oak of Ages is a good choice for loads of points and taking out Talcin. You should have a ton of points and settlements, but if you still need more, push further into Bretonnia and eventually the Empire to the north. If there's one thing the Beastmen are never short on, it's enemies. And finally we have the Slaughterhorn tribe, and they're led by Torux the Brass Bull. Taurox has access to the Rampage mechanic. His faction gains Rampage marks as Taurox wins battles in a row. Upon earning enough of these marks, you can choose from 3 tiers of rewards, which resets the counter, starting from the bottom again. You have to earn these marks in rapid succession to keep momentum high, and if momentum goes into the negative, all progress is lost, and you have to start all over again. His faction also has minus 25% dread cost for increasing the capacity of Minotaur units. For Taurox's army, the raiding stance is upgraded to Juggernaut raiding stance, which increases campaign movement range at the cost of raiding income. His army leaves the River of Blood effect in regions after winning battles. This increases corner corruption and leadership for all Warriors of Chaos, Beastmen and Norskin units, whilst reducing it for everyone else. And finally, plus 10% to weapon strength for Minotaur units. His faction starts just outside of Clark Carond, and his starting army has 3 Ungor Herd, some Ungor Spearman Herd, 2 Ungor Raiders, 2 Chaos Warhounds, and 2 Minotaurs, as well as a Brave Shaman of Wilds. For their victory conditions, you must have 220 marks of ruination and occupy loot, raise or sack 35 different settlements. Go straight to attacking Clark Carond and wipe out the surrounding area to ground as many marks as possible. After this, you can pretty much go wherever you want to get the marks you need. You can go east for more Dark Elves, north for Dark Elves and a lot of Chaos, west for Tomb Kings, or south for Dark Elves, and eventually the jungles of Lustria. Now we come to the faction effects. First up, we of course have that the Beastmen are a Horde faction. The Beastmen don't take settlements in your traditional form. Instead, they carry their buildings around with them in their armies, upgrading them when they have enough growth to unlock new recruitment, as well as new effects for their army. This does mean if you lose an army, you lose all buildings, so keeping them alive is even more important than usual. Their armies and recruitments also work off a capacity-based system, meaning none of their units cost anything to recruit or upkeep, but you can only have a certain number of elite units at a time. The capacity can be upgraded with Dread. Speaking of which, the rewards of Dread. Dread is a currency the Beastmen gain from battles, buildings, raising settlements, and Taurox's Rampage. They are then spent on the rewards of Dread, which have a couple of sections. You can increase the capacity you have for certain units, allowing you to field more elite units in battle. You can force confederation of the other Beastmen Lords, unlocking them for your faction. You can increase hero capacity, and you can upgrade herdstones, as well as a couple of more general faction upgrades. And you can also unlock powerful items from this menu, but use as currency instead of Dread. Next up we have Bestial Rage. This is basically a meter of how satiated the army's thirst for battle is. At a high level, the army will gain bonuses to horde growth and replenishment, and at low levels suffer penalties to these things. To keep it high, you just have to keep fighting and winning battles or raiding. It will then drain over time, so keep fighting regularly to maintain as high a level as you can. Next we have Herdstones and Bloodgrounds. Herdstones are the only way you can take settlements as the Beastmen. Erecting one turns these surrounding lands into bloodgrounds, which cannot be settled on until the herdstone is destroyed. You can only have a limited number of herdstones based on how many shards you have, so choose your placements carefully. When you win battles in a bloodground, either standard land battles or settlements, the herdstone fills with devastation points. Upon reaching 10 devastation, you can perform a ritual to transform those points into marks of ruination. These progress the bar at the top of the screen, and the more you get, the more powerful bonuses you unlock for your faction, like capacity for more elite units, army capacity, herdstone shards, and more. So keeping this rising should be a key focus of any campaign. Basically, you want to place a stone in the middle of as many settlements as possible, fight as much as you can in the bloodgrounds, perform the ritual when there is no more fighting to be done, then start all over again. And finally we have the Dark Moon. Every 8 turns you get the choice of 4 bonuses to apply to your faction. It's pretty much just free buffs every few turns, so pick whichever is going to help you the most in the moment, and you should be fine. And finally we come to the Beastmen research tree. The Beastmen research tree works a little bit different to most. Instead of having an actual tree, you have a few trees along with a bunch of single texts are unlocked once you complete some specific actions in your campaign. Almost all of them are just things you do eventually in your average campaign. Just keep an eye on them to make sure you've always got something to research, so you don't have to wait for all the powerful effects in the late game. It's mostly unit buffs since they're a horde faction, but just take what you can, research whatever will help you in the moment and when you need it. And that's everything about the Beastmen in the campaign, but if you want to learn how to use the rest of the factions in Warhammer 3, then click on this playlist to see my other faction guides.